This wasn't just another movie fight. This was Jean-Claude Van Damme against his real-life childhood friend Michel Qissi, two Brussels street fighters who had trained together since they were kids, now channeling years of brotherhood into the most authentic on-screen warfare ever captured on film.
Van Damme brought something special. Physical peak, lean, explosive frame. Beautiful and devastating, a deadly ballet. Kurt Sloane brought technical precision, lightning-fast reflexes, impossible angles, and defy physics. Trademark spinning heel kicks and legendary conditioning. But Kurt had weaknesses and exploit mercilessly. Too clean, too honorable, underground world of Thai kickboxing, and embracing brutality. A noble spirit might become his downfall. Savage who knew no limits. Mental game, biggest challenge. Weight of his brother's paralysis. Guilt of bringing Eric to Thailand. Pressure of representing. Razor's edge between justice and revenge. Justice, revenge.
Michel Qissi transformed himself into something inhuman for Tong Po. Standing 6 feet tall with a frame built like a fortress, decades of martial arts training in karate, kickboxing, and traditional Thai techniques. But it was his understanding of psychological warfare that made Tong Po legendary. Tong Po wasn't just a fighter, he was a destroyer of souls, a predator who fed on his opponent's fear and transcended normal human emotion to become pure violence. His style of fighting, deliberately crude and overwhelming, using his superior size and strength to bully opponents into submission. The character's greatest strength was his complete lack of moral restraint. While other fighters pulled back at the moment of potential permanent damage, Tong Po pressed forward. He broke Eric Sloane's back not by accident, but as a statement. Tong Po enjoyed inflicting suffering, that the physical victory meant nothing without the psychological destruction of his opponent. But Tong Po's arrogance was his weakness, careless, too confident in his ability to intimidate. He expected Kurt to break like all the others, failing to recognize that some men become more dangerous when they have nothing left to lose. Qissi's martial arts background in full-contact karate gave him the perfect foundation for Tong Po's brutal efficiency. Unlike Van Damme's flashy techniques, Qissi fought like a man who had learned violence in back-alley fights where style meant nothing and survival meant everything.
The final confrontation began with ritual and ceremony, but descended into primal savagery within minutes. Kurt entered the temple transformed, his body scarred by bamboo stakes and rope burns from Winston Taylor's brutal training regimen. The crowd could sense something different about the American this time. The opening rounds showcased the contrast in their styles. Kurt moved like water, flowing around Tong Po's heavy attacks and countering with precision strikes. His kicks snapped out like whips, targeting nerve centers and pressure points with surgical accuracy. But Tong Po absorbed the punishment like it meant nothing, his massive frame built to withstand punishment that would cripple Leffermen. Tong Po's strategy became clear as the fight progressed. He wasn't trying to outfight Kurt, he was trying to break him mentally. Every clash of shins, every brutal knee strike was designed to remind Kurt of what happened to his brother. The psychological warfare was as devastating as the physical assault. The tide began to turn when Tong Po caught Kurt with a devastating elbow that opened a gash above his eye. Blood streaming down his face, Kurt found himself backed against the temple wall as the giant pressed his advantage. Tong Po's ground game was suffocating, using his weight and strength to grind Kurt down like a millstone.
The turning point came when Kurt seemed finished. lying battered on the temple floor as Tong Po prepared for the killing blow. But something sparked in Kurt's eyes, a recognition that this wasn't about winning anymore. This was about proving that honor could triumph over brutality, that technique could overcome raw savagery. Kurt's comeback was poetry written in violence. He began targeting Tong Po's legs with low kicks, chopping away at the foundation of the bigger man's power. Each kick was perfectly placed, designed to accumulate damage rather than seek immediate gratification. The crowd watched in amazement as the supposedly invincible Tong Po began to show signs of vulnerability. The Americans' conditioning began to show as Tong Po's movements became labored. All those months of torture training under Winston Taylor had forged Kurt into something harder than steel. While Tong Po had relied on his natural advantages, Kurt had been reborn through suffering. The final exchange was inevitable and explosive. Both fighters threw everything they had left into one climactic assault. Kurt's spinning heel kick met Tong Po's charging knee in a collision that shook the ancient temple to its foundations. Kurt Sloane stood victorious, but barely. He absorbed everything and still found the will to persevere. Kurt stood victorious, but barely. Tong Po fell, but Kurt won by becoming just savage enough to survive while remaining just noble enough to deserve victory. Van Damme's performance? Van Damme's stared into the abyss, refused to blink first. Kurt won by becoming preparation over natural talent, heart over hatred, and brotherhood over brutality. He proved that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost, no matter the cost. The Thunder Temple had witnessed the birth of a legend and the fall of a tyrant, all captured in one perfect moment of cinematic martial arts history.